I've had enough of being with my ugly old wife. I have a cute girlfriend. I'm going to live with her. So sign the divorce papers now."
My husband, who had made me quit my job and forced me to take care of my bedridden Phil, confronted me with divorce papers. Hearing this, I felt as if I had been hit in the head. "You were cheating on me, and you're serious about divorcing me?"
"Yes, I am. I was just about to dump you. You better write the divorce papers and get them out, because I'm leaving here today."
My husband showed off his big suitcase. "What? What do you mean you're leaving? What about your Phil?"
"I can't take care of an old man who is bedridden. You're responsible for him."
"You're his son. You're abandoning your own father."
"Whatever you say. I'll just take the old man's inheritance and you take care of the rest."
I was so shocked that I couldn't even stand up with my mouth open. My husband left without hearing my voice to stop him. I clenched my fists and shook alone. He forced me to take care of my Phil, and in the meantime, he cheated on me and unilaterally said he was divorcing me. Then he continues to mock my Phil and throws all the care to me. I absolutely cannot forgive him. Immediately after that, my Phil, who had remained silent until then, suddenly burst into laughter and said,
"I'm going to show that scum son of mine the hell he deserves."
My name is Chloe, a 40-year-old housewife. I met my husband James 16 years ago. We met through a mutual friend. I am an elementary school teacher and James is an office worker for a small to medium-sized company. James was a good-natured guy, and to say the least, he was cheerful. He was the complete opposite of me, who was known to be too serious. Perhaps I was attracted to that part of him that I did not have. We continued to date steadily, and on our second anniversary, James proposed to me. I gladly accepted it, and we were engaged. My parents agreed with our marriage, and next we went to James's parents' house to say hello. His mother had already passed away when he was in high school, and his Phil, who is an executive in a large company, lives alone in Phil's house. Phil's house is quite a mansion, which made me nervous.
He said, "Hello, I'm so glad you came. It's nice to see you."
My Phil said with a smile on his face. Although he had a high social status and looked strict, my Phil was kind to me from beginning to end. Of course, he agreed with our marriage.
"Miss, are you sure you want to be with this foolish?"
I care for James very much.
"Well, you take good care of Chloe, James."
"I know you, Dad."
Thus, the wedding greeting went off without a hitch. On the way home,
"My father is very strict with me," James said, scratching his head, "and I can't keep my head above water. He's very strict with me, and I can get my head around it. But he's so lenient with Chloe.
Oh, is that right?
He likes you. I hope you and Dad will get along."
Yes, of course. After that, we got married, had a small ceremony, and my Phil wrapped up 1 million yen for the ceremony. Thus began the life of James and me. We started living in a rented apartment about a 30-minute drive from my FIL's house. But soon after that, we ran into a problem. To be honest, James's salary was not enough to support us. I also like being a teacher, so we started working both. But James surprisingly did not do much housework. He left all the housework to me and would not even vacuum the house when I asked him to.
"We are married, so housework is my wife's job. I'm the husband. I work hard and I'm tired."
This was James's argument, but I was tired from working as well. Even when I complained about this, James's attitude did not change. Gradually, however, I too became accustomed to his lack of housework and began to do everything myself. Time passed, and we had been married for 5 years. When I was 30 years old, a new problem surfaced. We could not have a child. I am a teacher, and I love children. James also wanted children, but there was no sign of conception. We both went to a fertility clinic, but the results were no problem for both of us. We don't know why we can't have children. However, they say that this kind of thing is rare. Upon receiving the results, I told James, "Hey, why don't we take the plunge into advanced fertility treatment from now on? It will cost a lot of money, but..." My husband suddenly raised his eyebrows.
It's a waste of money. You're the one responsible for our inability to have children.
But you said the test results were fine.
If there is nothing wrong with me, then it is absolutely your fault. Don't you feel sorry?
James unilaterally blamed me for his infertility. After that, he would say things like, "You can't have children," and apologize to me, and I began to feel mentally cornered. Gradually, I began to believe that it was my fault that I could not have children. I blamed myself, James blamed me, and I became thinner and thinner. One day, when I went to my FIL's house alone to run an errand, my FIL called out to me in surprise.
You don't look well, Crow, and you seem to have lost some weight. Is something wrong?
I'm sorry. Because of me, you may not be able to see your grandson's face. I break down in tears, but my FIL supports me and makes me sit down. As I tearfully told him what had happened, my FIL said to me, "There's no such thing as anyone's fault."
It's no one's fault. It's inevitable. You have nothing to blame yourself for.
Dad,
There are many couples who are good friends even if they don't have children. It would only be better if they did. Don't worry about showing your grandchildren's faces or anything like that.
thank you, Dad. After that, my FIL called James and scolded him quite harshly for his treatment of me. When James returned home, he was pouting.
You told Donnie, he said, and now I'm being scolded by my father. What are you going to do about it? It's your fault that we can't have children. So why should I be scolded? I don't agree.
In the end, even after being scolded by my FIL, his belief that I was the cause of his infertility did not change. After that, he never laid a finger on me again, perhaps as a sign that he was angry with me. 10 years have passed since then, and I am now 40 years old. Since we did not have a night life, there was no way we could have children, and I had already given up trying to conceive. However, we are still functioning as a couple, and although we have cooled our relationship, we still have conversations. I would do all the housework and bothersome things, and that continued to be the case. For the past 10 years, my FIL has always been very caring and kind to me. When I overcooked dinner, for example, I would go to his house to see how he's doing. He would bring me delicious snacks and souvenirs. When my FIL retired from work 3 years ago, I even gave him a retirement gift. One day, however, tragedy struck. As usual, I sent a message to my FIL saying, "I'm on my way there now." But there was no reply. I had a bad feeling about this, so I hurried to his house and entered with my own key, then found my FIL lying on the floor in the hallway. Dad, please pull yourself together." I immediately called an ambulance and accompanied him to the hospital, and also called James. The cause of my FIL's collapse was a stroke. He had surgery, but it was difficult for him to recover completely, and there was a strong possibility that he would become bedridden.
My father had a stroke and bedridden.
James was shocked and left the hospital room. After that, James and I decided to discuss the future at home. Then James casually said,
We are going to live at his house from now on. You will take care of him.
"What? but I have to work.
You can quit. Is your job more important than my father?
James growled at him. My Phil is the one who owes me a favor, but for me, work is just as important. I suggested that he hires a helper or other nursing service, but James shook his head and said, "That's a waste of money." Thus, I resigned from my job in tears and devoted myself to caring for my Phil at his home. My Phil suffered from hemiplegia and aphasia. He is bedridden because he cannot speak well and his body is almost immobile.
My father is miserable like this. I leave the rest to you, okay?
James said this in front of my Phil as soon as he got home and went to the other room. I was furious, but my Phil told me something surprising. After that, James left me in charge of my FIL's care and did not even try to help me. In fact, he started coming home late day by day and was away from home more and more. For a few months, I tried my best to take care of my Phil, something I was not accustomed to doing. One day, about 8 months after my Phil had just fallen ill, James came home late that day, too. You're home. James showed up at his FIL's room and, perhaps drunk, said this to me.
Oh, you're still looking ugly today. You're a disqualified woman if you don't even put on any makeup.
I don't wear makeup because I sweat when I take care of my family, and also because I don't want to spill makeup on my Phil. And yet, this is the way he talks to me. As I was about to retort, James continued with these words. But that ugly face of yours is not the only thing that makes you look ugly.
But today is the last time I'm going to see your ugly face.
He then handed me the divorce papers. Surprised at the suddenness of the situation, he continued,
I can't even have children. I've had enough of being with my ugly old wife who can't have children and doesn't wear makeup. I have a pretty girlfriend. I'm going to live with her. So sign me up now.
Hearing this, I felt as if I had been hit in the head. You were cheating on me, and you're seriously divorcing me because of that?
Yes, I am. I was just thinking about when I was going to dump you. I'm going to leave here today. I'm leaving here today.
My husband showed off his big suitcase. What? What do you mean you're leaving? What about your Phil?
I can't take care of an old man who is bedridden. You're responsible for him.
You're his son. You're abandoning your Phil.
Whatever you say. I'll just take the old man's inheritance and take care of the rest.
When I was unable to stand up with my mouth hanging open, he said as if he had just remembered, "Oh, I'll take this."
He said as if he had just remembered.
Before I knew it, my husband had my FIL's credit card in his hand. Without hearing my voice to stop him, he left. I clenched my fists and shook a loan. He forced me to take care of my Phil, and in the meantime, he cheated on me and unilaterally told me that he was divorcing me. Then he continues to mock my Phil and throws all the care to me. I absolutely cannot forgive him. I want to punish him. However, I have already quit my job and have no financial resources. But I can't abandon my kind Phil. As I was despairing, my Phil, who had remained silent until then, suddenly burst into laughter.
I'm going to give that scum son of mine hell.
He got up and sat down on the bed. In fact, my Phil had recovered enough to be able to get up by himself after repeated rehabilitation and improvement of his aphasia. My Phil once told me the following shocking words. Even if I recover from further rehabilitation, I want James to still think of me as a bedridden patient. Had my Phil anticipated this? To my astonishment, my Phil continued.
He continued, just as I thought. He was a total scumbag. Thank you very much, Crow, for sticking with me all this time.
Dad,
From now on, leave everything to me. I'll take care of you from now on, okay? First of all,
The next day, I visited James's company, only to be told that he had resigned. I tried all the places he might have gone and all his friends and acquaintances, but I couldn't find my husband. He had completely disappeared. But my Phil just smirked at me and said, "You'll see." A month later, I was at home with my Phil when there was a pounding on the front door. I looked at the intercom and there was James with a bright red face. Seeing my Phil nodding, I brought James up to the house.
Hey, he said, my dad's credit card has been declined. Dad's credit card is no longer working. You stopped it.
James yelled at me at the door. I silently headed for the living room.
Wait a minute. What selfish thing, huh?
James, who had followed me, looked at my Phil sitting on the sofa.
And, Dad, why? I thought you were bedridden.
James, it's been a long time. Sit down there.
My Phil said slowly, and James sat down on the sofa, shivering. I stood next to my Phil and looked at him with a clear face.
I'm the one who stopped the credit cards. Why should I let you use my property?
And no, Dad, it's not.
My Phil ignored me and looked at me. I told him in a quiet voice, "I am claiming you for the fees for cheating on me."
What? Alimony? What are you talking about?
You confessed to cheating on me before, didn't you? I think it's only natural for you to ask for alimony. James stumbled over his words, but he finally started to say something like that.
I didn't cheat on her. You don't even have proof.
I silently slammed several photos onto the table, and there were pictures of him entering a hotel room with a young woman and kissing her.
Hey, what the hell?
Your father got a detective to check it out.
Detective, you couldn't have known where I was, because I was in the next prefecture.
Then my Phil told me in disgust.
I can figure out where you are by looking at my credit card history. You always use the same hotels. You really are an idiot, you know that.
Oh.
James's face turned pale, but he quickly regained his composure and said,
This is something I did after the divorce. It doesn't prove that I wasn't faithful during the marriage.
What? We haven't divorced yet, though? When I showed him the divorce papers as they were that day, James paled even more.
Wait, you haven't turned it in yet?
Of course not. How could I allow you to just disappear and leave everything to me without even talking about money?
That's not possible.
The Phil told James, who was nodding his head, in a stern voice.
I checked and it seems that you also have debts, don't you? I know you're relying on my inheritance anyway.
What? You have searched that tool, but I'm the only one who can inherit your legacy, so I don't care.
Seeing James like that, his Phil scoffed at him.
He said, my assets will be given to Crow during my lifetime. You will be disinherited, so you will get nothing. You seem to think I'd go away quickly, but you were too stuffy.
Disinheritance abolition, oh ho ho ho.
James tells him to reconsider, but his Phil is serious. As soon as he realized that, he now clung to me.
Chloe, I'm sorry. I'll break up with my affair partner and we'll start over. It looks like you haven't even filed for divorce, so it's just as well.
James was in a hurry to tell me so. I said loudly to James, "Who's going to start over with you? We're divorced. I'm demanding alimony for the affair and a share of the property, so pay it and get the hell out of here."
Oh, no.
James was nodding his head and I kicked him out of the house. Later, my divorce from James was finalized. I successfully received alimony for the affair and half of our shared savings. So pay the alimony to me, James apparently went further into debt. Now that he has been easily dumped by his cheating partner for not receiving his FIL's inheritance and insulated from his father, he has moved into a shabby apartment and is apparently being chased by debt collectors. When I hear this, I just think, suck it up. After my Phil gave me his living will, I was introduced to a cram school run by an acquaintance of his and started working there as an instructor. As for my Phil, he has moved to an assisted living apartment for single people and is living a comfortable life. His health has improved considerably, and we even have tea together once in a while. I would like to continue to be grateful to my Phil and make the most of my life.